Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by. I had a lot of fun with my previous character study video about Thrawn, and I really wanted to do something similar with Mace Windu. He's someone that I really like, but I feel like there's a lot more nuance to his character than is typically prescribed. I don't think that Mace Windu is the best representative of the Jedi, as there are many times where he exhibits a leniency toward conflict and capital punishment. There are several very important moments in Mace Windu's life where he, in a sense, almost gave in to the dark side, and in some cases he arguably did. In this video, we'll be examining those moments, spanning his life from a Padawan all the way to the end of the Clone Wars, and taking a closer look at his character as a whole. The two main sources we'll be looking at, outside of the films, are the comic book Jedi of the Republic Mace Windu, and the novel Dark Disciple. Let's start from the beginning, when Mace Windu was a Padawan learning under the Mirialan Jedi Master Sislin Mir. Back then, years ago, long before the events of The Phantom Menace, Mir and Windu were sent by the Council to the planet Mathas to investigate the disappearance of one of their own Jedi. The planet Mathas had been experiencing a horrible plague, and in order to help the people of the planet, the Jedi established a temple that provided medicinal aid. However, the Jedi Master in charge of this temple went missing, and in his place stood an imposter Jedi by the name of Druze. This man had been pretending to be a Jedi and was manipulating the people of the planet into giving him their money. Sislin and Windu confronted Druze, which then led to a chase that ended in Druze's capture, with Windu standing over him, posed and ready to deliver a killing blow. Throughout the whole mission, Mace had expressed an anger for Druze. When they were first approaching the temple on Mathas, Mace held much contempt for the man, stating that he can think of little his tongue could say better than his saber in this instance, implying that his lightsaber would provide a better solution to this problem. His Jedi Master corrected that thinking, telling him that a fire burns inside him. She said that Mace needed to dissolve his hostility and channel his frustrations into a proper emotion. Now, Mace Windu has captured Druze and is very prepared to kill him with his lightsaber. He tells Druze that he will make sure he never hurts another soul again, pointing his saber directly at Druze's face. In the comic, there is an absolute look of pure hatred dressing Mace's face. His expression is one of malice. However, before Mace can end Druze's life, Mir stops him. His Jedi Master attempts to dissuade Mace from killing the vile man. Despite Mace's protests, Mir argues that Druze will stand before a trial, where a court of law will determine his fate. Now, I always assumed that Mace spared Druze after this, but having triple-checked this comic book, it actually never resolves this storyline. I'd like to think that Mace didn't kill Druze, but now I think that they intentionally left that ambiguous. However, despite that, I don't think that Mace killed Druze, but it's very clear that Mace absolutely wanted to, even after listening to what Sislin Mir had told him. Now, we jump ahead to when Mace is a master on the Jedi Council. Mace Windu has famously said that the Jedi were keepers of the peace, not soldiers. He has always been the voice of the Jedi teachings, as, after all, he was the Master of the Order alongside Yoda. However, when war plagued the galaxy, the Jedi could not just sit idly by and watch as everyone killed each other. So, when the Clone Wars finally began, Mace Windu and the rest of the Jedi Order took on military roles, serving in the Republic Army as generals and leading the war from the battlefront. Towards the beginning of the Clone Wars, Mace Windu grapples with the idea of the Jedi becoming involved. The Battle of Geonosis does not sit well with him, due to the amount of lives lost in the fighting. However, he realizes that the galaxy will be swept away in conflict unless the Jedi do something. He begrudgingly rationalizes that, and I'm quoting him here, "The Jedi have always been the champions of peace for the galaxy. We protect life above all else. I suppose that means becoming a sword instead of a shield. He tells himself that it's easier to lead the Republic down the right path from the front lines of battle. Soon after, he is given an assignment by the Council to lead a mission to the planet Hisrich to stop Separatist forces from establishing a foothold there. Mace organizes a team of Jedi to go on this mission. This team is comprised of Kit Fisto, Proset Dibs, and Risa Mano. Windu specifically tells the Council that the reason he brings Proset Dibs along is because of his wisdom and insight. He clearly recognizes and respects Proset's capabilities as a thinker. Mace even says that Proset Dibs is as in tune with the Force as any Jedi he's ever known. When this Jedi group led by Mace Windu reaches Hisrich, or Hisrich, I'm not really sure about that pronunciation, Proset is quick to state that he does not trust the mission, nor the Jedi's place in the war. Proset specifically states that war is no place for a Jedi. Windu counters this by saying, "Yet we are called Jedi Knights." Despite his reverence for Proset's insight, Mace is quick to counter and disagree with him during their conversations on this mission. Throughout these conversations, Proset essentially reiterates all of Mace's concerns from the beginning of the comic. Yet, Mace tells him that sometimes Jedi must fight when necessary. It's a strange juxtaposition, especially considering Mace's explanation to the Council as to why he wanted to bring Proset Dibs along in the first place. This also highlights his reasoning for bringing Kit Fisto along, that being that according to Mace Windu, Kit's skills with a lightsaber are unrivaled. Mace prioritized both wisdom and combat specialists, but when wisdom offered itself to Mace, especially wisdom that denounces combat, he chooses to counter or ignore it. This is especially true later in the comic when Proset and Mace actually duel one another. On the planet Hisrich, the Jedi discover that the real reason the Jedi and the Republic had any interest in the planet at all was not to protect the people from the Separatists, but instead to capture it for the Republic. The planet had resources, and both factions wanted to take advantage of those resources. This angered Proset, as it was essentially further proof that the war was ridiculous and that the Jedi were losing their way, straying from their teachings and their code. Meanwhile, Mace actually defended the need for Hisrich's resources. When Proset Dibs announced that he would cut ties with the Jedi and forge his own path, Mace threatened to hunt him down for desertion. Mace tells Proset to stop, saying that not only is Mace on the Council, but his general in battle. Proset raised his lightsaber and engaged Mace in combat. It was a quick fight with Mace Windu as the victor, once again standing over Proset this time. Here we have Mace in a similar situation as when he was a Padawan. He's standing over his defeated opponent, directing his lightsaber at the face of his victim. Now, Mace isn't entirely in the wrong in this scenario. During the fight, Mace told Proset that fighting in the Clone Wars was necessary, as the Jedi needed to protect what they knew was right. They didn't want to fight, but they knew they had to save the galaxy from destruction. However, a Jedi choosing to leave the Order isn't exactly considered desertion. It's interesting that Mace Windu used that term, because that's generally seen as a military term. When Mace stood over Proset, he had the chance to slay him then and there, and though Mace hesitated, he did choose to spare Proset, resolving to bring him before the Council instead to determine his fate. Now, Mace has to deal with the remaining Separatists on the planet, who are led by a droid mercenary called ADW4, who I like to refer to as Star Wars Ultron. He's actually a pretty cool character in my opinion. His only concern at all is credits. That's literally all he cares about, and that's the only reason that he took this job for the Separatists. He's very perceptive and analytical though, which becomes very obvious when he and Mace Windu eventually fight each other. The comic comes to a climax when Mace Windu goes to face ADW4, who has a very sour opinion of the Jedi. As they duel each other, AD makes some very interesting observations about Mace Windu in particular. He called Mace a hypocrite, much like the rest of the Jedi, for becoming involved in the war. He claims that he knows Mace Windu, that he can see inside him. He notes that Mace likes being a general, he likes being a weapon, that it gives Mace an outlet for his anger, it gives him an excuse for his violence. Mace, of course, bests ADW4 in combat and rejects all of those observations. He then raises his lightsaber to kill ADW4, once again in a similar position in which he stands over his victim. He announces that AD will pay the price for choosing the wrong side, but just before he delivers the killing blow, ADW4 detaches his droid head, revealing that there is a thruster at the base of the robotic neck, and he flies away. However, Mace just uses the Force to reach out and crush and explode AD before he can escape. In all fairness, if the Jedi chose not to fight in the Clone Wars, the situation could have been worse. The Jedi knew that Count Dooku was the figurehead of the Separatists. He led the secessionist forces. But the Jedi also knew that Dooku was an evil person, and therefore could not stand by and watch the galaxy fall to him. The issue with becoming involved in the war, though, was how quickly the Jedi became adapted to it, especially in Mace Windu's case. Mace very easily and very quickly fell into the war mentality. He began using military terminology, referring to himself and the other Jedi as generals. He rationalized that war was the necessary path for Jedi in order to maintain peace and protect people, sort of taking an ends justify the means approach to the Jedi's involvement in the Clone Wars. This mentality surprisingly leads to Mace Windu suggesting to the rest of the Council in the Dark Disciple book that they assassinate Count Dooku. Assassination, the act that Mace Windu himself claimed was not within Dooku's character because of his Jedi nature. This concept has come full circle, leading to yet another interesting juxtaposition. It just shows how much the war has affected both the Jedi and Mace Windu. When Windu proposes the idea of assassinating Count Dooku, it's with the intention of preventing further death. With Dooku out of the way, the war could come to a close and the galaxy would stop suffering. This is a very dangerous proposal, however, as the very notion of assassination is a very immoral and dark-sided concept, no matter what the end goal may be. This really shows that Mace is thinking in terms of war now. But this harkens back to what ADW4 had said about Mace Windu before he died, that he likes the idea of being a general, kind of implying that he prefers this military position as opposed to being a peacekeeper. We've seen evidence of his propensity for violence, and we've seen evidence of his leadership capabilities. These two qualities blend during the Clone Wars. It gives Mace the ability to indulge those feelings. This isn't to say that Mace is just another Anakin Skywalker, because he's not as emotional as Anakin, nor is he as ambitious or chaotic. Yes, Mace Windu was right about Anakin the whole time, being able to see the dark side inherently within him, but that doesn't necessarily absolve him of all of his other actions. I think that Mace Windu cares deeply about saving lives, about true justice. That has always been the driving factor to all of Mace's decisions and actions, and that's always been what has caused Mace to get emotional or angry whenever justice is not being served or whenever people are being put in danger. But I think that for Mace, he feels that sometimes the ends really justify the means, that some level of finality has to be achieved to prevent the future loss of life. That's why during all of those moments from before, from whenever Mace defeated his opponent, he was very drawn to the idea of executing them then and there to stop those injustices from ever happening again. He thought about killing Druze to stop his schemes on Mathas. He considered killing Prosit for his rejection of the Jedi and for raising his saber against him. and he killed ADW4 to stop the Separatists. This pattern culminates in Mace attempting to kill Palpatine and to stop the Sith and bring an end to the Clone Wars, where he was eventually betrayed by Anakin Skywalker and then killed by Palpatine. Mace Windu was a staunch believer in the Jedi Code, but his desire for justice and peace, I'd say, almost drove him to the dark side. I don't want to say he completely fell to the dark side, because I don't really think that Mace would be so easily swayed to join the Sith like Anakin was, but he clearly was willing to suggest and go through with some very dark-sided ideas, such as assassination and execution, even before the Clone Wars occurred, or even before the war had lasted too long and had had the chance to pollute the Jedi. So that will conclude this character study. I think it's this nuance that really drives me to like Mace Windu. He's actually got some depth. Yes, he's a stone cold badass with a dope purple lightsaber, but there's more to him than that. To be honest, there isn't a Star Wars character that I dislike. There are characters that can act bad and make bad decisions, but I don't dislike them for any of that. Star Wars is expansive enough that it has room for all kinds of characters with different backgrounds and nuances and motivations, different stories to tell, so none of it ever strikes me as just actually a bad character, just a different type of representation. Anyway, that's going to cover it for this video. I really liked working on my previous character study on Thrawn, so I wanted to try and do another one with Mace Windu as the character, because I've been thinking about Mace for a while now. I hope you enjoyed it, and if so, I hope you'll give a like and leave a comment. Let me know what your thoughts are on this. Do you think Mace was meant for a military leadership position, or was he maybe even tempted by the dark side a little? Was Mace in the right during any of these encounters? Man, let me know what you think. In the meantime though, thanks again for stopping by, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video whenever that may be.